with the pattern design being divided into the layout of each different colour. A different block was carved for each colour by tracing the design and marking it on the wood and then carving away the parts of the wood that aren't needed. A resist paste was made from mud thickened with gum, slate lime and clay to cover the parts already dyed. The fabric was then over-dyed with the next colour. The previously applied colour was retained where it was covered by the resist. The process was repeated until the design was complete. Of course, you don't need to use teak to make the block. Foam rubber board or even polystyrene can be shaped to produce a printing block, and the same techniques of marking out your pattern and carving apply. Once you understand your fabric and how it's been treated, you can begin to make decisions on how to construct your intended design. Most textile products are an assembly of fabric pieces which are put together to make up a three-dimensional shape. A crucial element of textile design that you'll need to get to grips with is how to break down a design into pieces that can be developed into a pattern and reassembled as a final solution. So the patterns start life as measurements. This principle is the same no matter what textile product you're designing and making. So watch this clip about the whole process of designing and making a hot air balloon, note down the stages of the process and the special considerations needed for this particular project.
Before the balloon can be made, it needs to be designed. Steve Wallace has designed flying pipes, flying snowmen, even flying witches. But he's just been set a new challenge. It's an energy-saving light bulb.
Philips have come up with this new light bulb, which they're trying to get everybody to be aware of. And they thought one of the best ways is to make a gigantic light bulb-shaped balloon. So somebody in the advertising department at Philips have made a drawing of the light bulb, and this is what they'd like to see flying. But there are certain things that we can't make fly. For instance, if we tried to have the tubes as tall as this, they just wouldn't support themselves and they'd all go very floppy. So we've had to make some changes, like we've had to make the tubes slightly smaller.
Steve will have to plan every detail. Hundreds of fabric panels will have to be sewn together to make the light bulb shape. Balloons are made from nylon, a synthetic fabric that's both light and strong. But much of the fabric's strength comes from the way it's woven. Every few millimetres, thicker fibres stop rips and tears.
As balloons have become more and more complex, the geometry of them has got more difficult to understand and more difficult to imagine what the final shape is going to look like. And this is one of the things that we use the computer to do, to help us to see what the finished balloon is going to look like. And the computer also helps us with the numerous calculations that we have to carry out on the balloons to make sure all the panels are going to fit together. Louise is the next link in the chain. She will take my computerised data and she will convert them into full-size patterns.
I take his disk from the computer and put it into our plotting machine. And the plotter, which is a very slow process, but one by one it does each pattern.
The fabric is cut out using the paper patterns as a guide. Every one of hundreds of panels must be labelled to show exactly where it goes. With this much material, it's essential to be very organised.
This is my Bible. I do all my workings out. All the design sheets start off in here, clean sheets. I do lots of scribbles, work out where everything goes together, what colours everything's got to be, how many of each panel I need. So when they're working on it, you can keep a good track of what's going on.
For strength, every seam is sewn with the fabric doubled over. By law, hot air balloons must meet the same safety standards as jet planes, so the joins between panels are also double stitched. Blowing the balloon up with cold air will allow them to check the shape without it taking off.
We're generally pretty confident that it'll fly. The things that cause doubt in the back of your mind are whether it's going to look quite as it's intended. We do as many calculations as we can to make us confident that everything is going to work. But at the end of the day, when you're standing with maybe up to 5,000 metres of fabric, it's very nerve-wracking. I've not had a failure yet, but I live in constant fear.
As you saw, the designer used his knowledge of balloon design to modify the original design specification. Then using CAD, he planned how many panels were needed and how these would fit together. This allowed him to visualize the end product and calculate precise dimensions. These CAD data were directly transferred to a plotting machine which translated the design into a series of patterns for all the panels. This is called computer-aided manufacture, or CAM. The panels were then cut using the pattern pieces and labelled. A production plan organised the assembly of the balloon, which was constructed by a team of 3, 2 sewers and a team leader. Finally, the design was tested and evaluated in an appropriate and safe environment. Crucial consideration was health and safety, since hot air balloons must meet the same safety standards as jet airplanes. Nylon was used for its strength and durability. The way it was woven ensured that tears were kept to a minimum. Seams were stitched with the fabric doubled over for strength, and the seams themselves were then double stitched. Basic construction techniques are taken one stage further in fashion design. Fashion design can be for anything from cocktail jackets and wedding hats to accessories and boots. And a key element when you create your design solutions is the idea of a story. In fashion design, a story is a themed range of clothes that includes different coordinates and accessories. These different stories are produced so that a designer has items across a range of garments to form a collection. This helps to maximize sales. Producing a story requires you to generate a wide range of design ideas. In the next clip, Helen pays a challenge to design a story for a top fashion designer. While you watch, note down answers to these questions. What were their stories based on? What considerations did they take into account? What were the main stages in the process? And what made their story successful?
The time had come to sell our ideas to Thomas himself. At the beginning, there had seemed virtually no hope of even getting to this stage, so we were prepared for rejection.
The idea is to get the basic shape of the curve of a woman, and the skirts, as you can see, are overlapping petals in some cases. I don't think this button is particularly working at the moment. We wanted the idea of the rose that was dying and fading.
Nice shape.
It's working. Yeah.
You're going to have a problem with that it's going to swing.
Do you think they're too heavy?
As a button, yeah. She's going to have to work at it.
But the second one is inspired by the Tiffany lamps or screens that we saw.
Art Nouveau.
No, I like this. I like this more.
So we wanted to reflect this, the embroidery, or a panel effect by seaming. And also, Tom, because we thought you might be interested.
Oh, nice.
So there's a selection, that kind of Tiffany feel, so there's that nice enamel texture reflective.
That's lovely. I like the idea of all these curves. We're going to have to think about them very carefully, because the practicality of something like that may gape, it may not work. And you have put this element of embroidery. It could even be a lace. There may even be a lace like this. I'd like to see that tied in with the tailoring.
Back to the drawing board. We decided to make our jackets and dresses in red and navy using a wool crepe pinstripe to create the power dressing feel and really show off the Tiffany details.
What I like about these is that you have understood the basic premise, really, of dress design. And what you seem to me to have done very well here is you've taken the spirit of the Tiffany lamp and you've made it your own by changing it and by creating it in embroidery. Am I right in that?
Yeah, that's right. We've sort of dumped the idea giving coloured panels like the lamp because we thought that might be too literal.
Let me just say, first of all, you never say you've dumped an idea in fashion. You say you have developed the idea, right?
So do you think they've got the feeling of a story?
Oh, very much so. They are, I think, looking at these drawings, I get a very coherent feel from them. I can see them in material, on women, coming down a runway and saying something. To use the good old-fashioned cliché, making a statement.
Without a team of talented technicians, a fashion designer is lost. So it was important that our drawings were given the green light by Thomas's assistant, Mark Tabard.
They've answered the brief perfectly, and we particularly liked your embroidery designs. The freedom of your scribbles are actually really inspirational, and I hope our embroiderer is going to have something to work with there.
All garments are initially made up in calico to make sure that they have the look, shape and movement that the designer intends. These prototypes are known as toile.
Now, what we need to do now is to make this look as much like your drawing as possible. For instance, the collar curve.
Do you move around a minute, Dan? Yeah, that's good. You know, I reckon I like the collar curve. I reckon it could be even more curved.
Okay.
What do you think, Gareth, at the top?
I think it feels like it needs to come more across.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
It's drawing on it.
Oh, no, it look really nice.
There's an innocence about those drawings. There's a freshness, which, because there isn't the experience, it makes it look very fresh. It's very exciting. And it reminds us that we're sometimes a bit too contrived.
This is the dress with the embroidery all around the hem, which I think this would look really good. There.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very curious to see the power it will have within the range. All of it is looking good. Let's see it all put together. I'm not going to promise at this point that everything they have designed is going to go in, but they've got a pretty good chance of getting a lot in.
9 a.m. on the big day. The show would begin at 11:15.
I'd like to do the ball gowns first.
Thomas was in full flight. The third story on the runway would be 8 outfits in navy and red pinstripe, designed by us.
Hale and Pace presented 2 stories, one on the theme of a rose in the female form and one based around a Tiffany lamp. These themes were expressed mainly in the details of the clothes, the seams, buttons and panels, rather than the overall shapes. They had to consider the practicalities of their designs, such as buttons that might be too heavy and collar shapes that may gape. And they considered fabrics and the feel that would give the final garment the right message to the consumer. Their design solutions were successful because they'd interpreted a theme and made it individual. They began by putting their ideas on paper as annotated drawings. Once they'd come up with a few alternative styles, they chose suitable fabrics and colours and developed them into a number of design solutions. A pattern was made from the drawings and a prototype was made in calico to make sure they had the look, shape and movement they wanted. Finally, the garments were assembled and displayed on the catwalk. So, when you're designing fashion textile, make sure you develop a theme and make it your own. Think about a versatile range of items that will mix and match. Take care to consider your fabrics and don't neglect accessories such as buttons, gloves or fabric decoration. In other words, make a statement. Have a go on your own and make a story based on the theme of geometrical shapes and plastic. Here are a few ideas. So here's our checklist for textile technology, the left in this program. In this focus area, you need to understand the working properties of fibers, both natural and man-made, the working properties of fabrics and how they're constructed, how fabric construction and fiber combinations can be used to vary working properties, choosing fabric that is fit for purpose. You need to display some creativity in using decorative techniques to enhance fabrics. You also need to understand how to break down your final design into a pattern and then assemble it, how to use CAD and CAM to design and make a textile product, how to incorporate health and safety concerns into each stage of construction, and some of the environmental, social and economic issues surrounding textile production. Finally, you need to be familiar with the concept of a fashion design story.
From my experience, I've seen that it helps a lot if you start well in advance. I know it's easy to keep putting it off right till the end, but if you do start early, it really, really does help.
So, there you have it. Congratulations. You should now be feeling a lot more confident about resistance materials, systems and control in electronic products, and textile technology. If you haven't seen it already, you must go back and watch GCSE Bite-Size D&T 1 for vital skills you'll need whatever focus area you're studying. You'll need to watch the designing and making section, which shows you the process you need to design and make any product effectively. While graphic products helps you brush up those drawing skills, and food technology shows you health and safety requirements in industry. Remember, our case studies offer real-life solutions to design challenges. So here's a quick taster. And don't forget that the book will also provide you with revision exercises to do. And if you haven't found it already, here's a reminder of the web address for the GCSE Bite-Size online site. Oh, and finally, good luck in your exams.
Are you keen to get to grips with the internet, but find it all a bit much? Well, the WebWise 2001 series is here to help you. Starting with the basics, it tells you all about getting connected to the internet, emailing and much more. Plus, there's a guide to BBC Becoming WebWise, our easy-to-follow online course that'll help you become a confident internet user. WebWise 2001 is on BBC Learning Zone every weekday till Friday, from 5 to 6 a.m. See you there.
It looks like it's been airbrushed over the family.
I know what it looks like.
There is no greater connection.
You and him have a lot in common, you know.
It's an amazing and beautiful idea.
Must be in the genes.
Than flesh and blood.
In all families, things happen.
It wasn't a mistake, and it's not nothing, and it matters more than anything.
All this time, nobody told me what happened.
You don't really believe all this, do you?
Perfect Strangers continues.
It's a great story of sibling love.
Thursday at 9 on BBC Two.
Couldn't we do a Japanese garden?
Focus, Charlie. Focus on the gold medals.
I'm finished, Chris. How about you?
I think we're there, Dermot.
Now!
Come home to the best gardens. Exclusive coverage of the RHS Chelsea Flower Show starts Monday 21st of May on BBC Two.
It's Adult Language Learners Week, and throughout, BBC Learning Zone will give you a taster of all our language and culture courses to be broadcast over the next few weeks. So it's not too late to pick up a few phrases before the summer holidays. Here's our guide on how to make a start.
Manuel, there is too much butter on those trays. There is too much butter on those trays.
No, senor. What? Not on those trays. No, sir. Uno, dos, tres.
No. I'm mucho burro ali.
Okay?
I'm mucho burro ali.
Ah, mantequilla.
What?
Okay? Mantequilla. Burro is burro.
Manuel, por favor, momento.
Sí.
Nothing, dear, I'm just dealing with it.
He speak good, how you say?
English.
Mantequilla. Solamente dos.
Dos.
Well, don't look at me. You're the one who's supposed to be able to speak it.
Former Spurs and England striker Gary Lineker went to play for Barcelona in 1986.
I'd only been there about 6 months when we played Real Madrid and at home in Barcelona, and the atmosphere at those games is just incredible. I've never experienced anything like that. 120,000 people just screaming their heads off for you. And I scored a hat-trick in that game and we won 3-2. And after that I could do what I liked in the city. Neither Michelle or myself spoke a word of Spanish before we went. And having looked at footballers that had been abroad previously, I'd personally noticed that the ones that had been successful abroad and played well abroad were the ones that had really adapted and made an effort to learn the language.
Okay, atrás, Pedraza, ahora, para, Miguel! Hey, Moritalia, bien, perfecto. Gary, you shouldn't be offside there.
I mean, Terry Venables was, he'd been there a couple of years before I went there. He could communicate very well in Spanish. People like Kevin Keegan, Tony Woodcock in Germany. You look at Liam Brady, Ray Wilkins in Italy. And it goes on, and I don't think it's any coincidence that they'd made the effort to learn the language and made them happy and successful abroad. It's all very well said it shouldn't affect